Hello, everybody. Welcome to the review. I'm getting kind of tired. Yeah. We're back with Saw 5, the fifth installment of the Saw series. Just to start out before we get into this review, Saw is actually called Saw because what you saw isn't what you see. I guess that's what it's like. I heard that in a video. But yes, I guess I get that because, yeah, flashbacks. Saw 5 is actually a better film than Saw 4 and 6, in my opinion, and 7. But, yeah, well, what I have to say about Saw 5 is, let's begin with the characters. Mark Hoffman again. Peter Strahm. Perez isn't in this movie, but we do have more interesting dynamics to traps in this than I would, and I'm glad they did go on that route. They didn't continue with the other traps because, man, there's some good traps in this film. From starters, we find a new idea of traps with more than two people or one people. Now, I've seen this before in the Nerve Gas House, but these guys are working together in this one. Nerve Gas House, they were two, but they were kind of split off of their own. I don't want to really explain it, but yeah, well, we have Mike Mitchell, I think his name is. I think that's his name, but Malcolm. Yes, it's Malcolm. Britt, I think this one girl's name is Charles. This one guy's name is Lumba. I think I'm just gonna call her Luna. And one random blonde chick. On the first one, you later find out that they could have all used the same key, and the goal is there's these strings or cords attached to this thing with a blade. Then you gotta get to your box, bash it open, get the key, go back, unlock yourself from it, else, and if you don't have, if the time runs out, your head basically gets cut off. But Malcolm, being selfish, makes a mad dash to get the first key, which is very unfair, I'd say. And yeah, well. So yes, the blonde chick dies here. We get to the second room, and this one has a you basically there's a bear bomb, or no, it's not a bomb, it's a nail. I think it's like a nail bomb again, but like the one in Saw 3. But this one has a chamber where like there's each little holes in the wall for the people to get into, and they're pretty deep. So these people are so selfish they couldn't figure out they could fit all of them. But no, poor Charles dies by the bear bomb or the bomb. I'm sorry, bear bomb's such a cooler name though. The next room is a bathtub where everybody could get an electric shock, but being selfish, what they do is, if everybody was there, everybody could have survived, but no, Luba, I'll just say Luba, is shocked by the cords, which are in the bathtub, and which opens their last door to the final one, where we also see this thing where there's basically a saw blade and you gotta give enough amount of blood of the beaker, and this thing is just painful to watch because it has a saw through their hand, which is pretty gross. But here's the thing: it's not even the best part of this film. Strom is the best in this film. Have I not mentioned it? He's also does something, one of the most coolest things anybody's ever did at the beginning of this movie. So it plays out at the end. Strom is investigating the room where John Kramer's at, and where he's dead on the bed, on like the table, and it gets locked in by Hoffman, and then he gets drugged by by Hoffman in the pig mask. I think that's Hoffman in the pig mask. It could be, but it's Hoffman, and he wakes up in this kind of TV looking box on his head, and there's like water filling into it, and if he does, he'll drown in it. If he doesn't, he basically it's like an inescapable trap, but he'll drown because it's got coolers going into it. What he does, he uses an ink pen pulls and creates a trinket in his throat where he can breathe out of. It was one of the most coolest moves anybody's ever done in this franchise. So smart. I mean, I'm glad they did this. I think Strom deserved a good way. We also see this interest in this dynamic of the FBI, who also, Strom works with, are starting to catch on that Strom might be Jigsaw's new apprentice, but that's not true because, we all know Hoffman is, but they don't. But, and Hoffman's planning all these devices. Hoffman gets a note saying, I know who you are. He thinks it's, Strom, but he also thinks, I guess he thinks it's kind of Jill. Which, I mean, what that makes sense. She already knows who he is. But we find out it's Dr. Gordon later. Spoiler alert. But, yeah. So, he sets it up to make, Hoffman even puts Perez's pictures. No, not Perez. That's his, no, not, it's not Agent Perez. It's like the USB guy. I know James Agent Ace from Dead Meat calls him that, but I'll call him that too. Sorry, James. But yeah, USB guy comes and there's photos of him on Hoffman's death, which people are thinking Strom's death. So, and this leads to the final trap. And we do find out that Britt and Malcolm do survive. We even see Malcolm in the two movies over in Saw 7. But back to the final trap. Basically, in this one, Strom is going into this room where there's this glass coffin that we see John Kramer making in the last film, and he gets in it. He doesn't get in it because he thinks that Hoffman's just a trick, but he doesn't play the tape early enough and so he gets to jump on Hoffman. He pushes it into him. Then he realizes that if he doesn't get in the case, the walls are going to close in, and the case starts to go underground, and he gets crushed, which is one of the most gruesome deaths in this franchise. I love it, but it's one of the best. Saw 6, we'll kick off right after this. But going back to some of the flashbacks, we see Jill takes kind of a backseat in this film, but we do see a flashback where Mark Hoffman, at the beginning of the movie, Seth Baxter, the guy who killed his sister. I know I said sex, but Seth Baxter basically gets his a pendulum, one of those swinging dagger looking things across his chest, and his stomach, and it is nice. I love this death, not because it's not deserved, because it is, but plus the special effects, and it is amazing. But we find out that was not by Jigsaw, but that was by Hoffman. So we see that John Kramer drugs Hoffman in an elevator, and he brings him to his room where there's a shotgun attached to his neck. Tells him to pull the trigger, but he does, and nothing happens. And so basically he hires him as an apprentice. That's how Hoffman became Jigsaw's apprentice. I'm glad you guys know this. This has been a longer review, and what would I rate this movie? 8 out of 10. It's better than Saw 4. I gave Saw 4 7 out of 10, I think. Yeah, well, I'm gonna lower that down to 6 out of 10. This movie gets an 8.1 out of 10. Would I recommend this movie? Yeah. Well, remember everyone, stay healthy, don't catch anything, and don't die.